Aye lulahi uski stintu do di kanoki. This song is called the Friendship Dance. It's the introductory dance at all of our ceremonial grounds. It welcomes everyone to come and participate. This is not the entire song, but this is enough to show you a little piece of where we come from. Yo ho, yo ho, yo ho, yo ho, yo. Oh yeah.
Osio Nagad, Jennifer Loren Dawado. Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Loren, Cherokee Nation citizen and host of Osio, Voices of the Cherokee People. Welcome to Chalagi, wherever we are. Quickly, we want to let you know that everyone participating here in the studio today, including the crew, has been vaccinated and tested negative for COVID, which is why we are unmasked and only when we are on camera. The prelude to this event was provided by Wade Ryan Mackey, Squirrel Ridge Ceremonial Ground Chief, who sang the Friendship Dance, which is a traditional welcoming or opening prayer for traditional ceremonies. On today's program, we will cover one of our most requested topics, Cherokee Spirituality. Here's what you'll see on today's show. First, we will hear from Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. His address will be followed by a short documentary where we hear from spiritual leader Crossland Smith about what he calls the old ways. Next, we will have a conversation with another spiritual leader, Saul Moccasin, along with Deputy Chief Bryan Warner, to talk about spiritual journeys. We'll follow that up with a short video from Charles Twist, who talks about how he practices Cherokee spirituality from outside of our reservation. And next, Wade Ryan Mackey and Abraham Bearpaw will discuss with me Cherokee spiritual practices. And finally, we will hear from Donnie Squirrel, who will wrap up the show from the ever-important matriarchal perspective. We hope that you'll stick around for everything today, but first, a prayer in our Cherokee language from Cora Flute, Master Apprentice Program language teacher.
Wado Jennifer, I Joleli Chitsi, I the Dado Liste. Skian Etlina, to go you, Iski Stelis, Gisi Joleli Chis Kohi Skias, a han siu tohi de skiatinog, a han dodge loska Kohi, Haleskun hu de Johis, Nihu Hadanteska Negatsti Skest. Ni go hila a han elon naskia galala di jin gatsti. Hale he nanu ni go usadeg si dan kloske hale dan uktanido ha. Ni go hus jaleg ayel halesku jaleg ani jaleg unat stel tosku. Siu de histela hido hestu de he o haskestu. Halesku ni go hila wi jaleg go di hest. Iskian etlena giste doste giti wi ski stel ni go jogadage you gesesti. Kalone giste dosta skistelis. Amen.
Wado Cora. And now we will hear from Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Osio, thank you for joining us again today for another broadcast of Cherokee, wherever we are. Our team is committed to providing the content and exploring the topics that so many of our fellow Cherokees have requested. Today, we're focused on spirituality and how Cherokees can gain more insight into our spiritual traditions. Since time immemorial, the Cherokee people have been very religious and spiritually attuned people. Before European contact, we knew we had a creator and believed the world should have balance, harmony, cooperation, and respect. People and communities live together in balance with our natural world. The idea of religion and spirituality meant everything to our ancestors. Many of our oldest traditions are alive and well today, practiced by Cherokees who hold those ways sacred. Every part of the world maintained an interconnectedness and held meaning. A phrase we use often, "we all come from one fire," is rooted in these reverential beliefs. Because fire is sacred, and we cherish and honor the fire. A significant number of Cherokees still observe and practice older traditions, meeting at ceremonial grounds in local communities to hold stomp dances and other ceremonies. With the first European contact came Christianity, and the Cherokee people have been shaped by two dual ideologies ever since. Today, many Cherokees practice some denomination of Christianity. Christian missionaries have a complicated past in Native history. Many atrocities were committed against indigenous peoples in the name of religion. On the other hand, many missionaries, like the Moravian missionaries, helped the Cherokee people advance. In education especially, we utilize the Cherokee syllabary to translate the New Testament, hymns, and scripture lessons. These ideologies, whether in a singular or blended way, helped reinforce the Cherokee identity. There is no right or wrong with each person's spiritual journey. Cherokee values respect, sharing, and gadugi. These are found in both Christian and traditional tenets. They enable harmony within our families and our communities. Spirituality, that unseen but felt power, creates a bond among the Cherokee people. In good times and bad, it is always a source of hope. In the 21st century, the Cherokee people, over 400,000 strong, are diverse in so many ways, including our spiritual beliefs. Respect for those diverse views and beliefs is part of Cherokee law. Like the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, Article 3, Section 4 of the Cherokee Constitution prohibits Cherokee Nation government from infringing on the people's free exercise of religion or freedom of speech. These fundamental protections are bedrock legal principles in any free society. As Cherokee people, we celebrate these freedoms. I'm proud to have many women and men of faith in my life as friends and mentors. You'll hear from many of them today, including elders and spiritual advisors, Crossland Smith and Saul moccasin. Also, my good friend, Deputy Chief Bryan Warner, is a man who puts his family and his faith above all. It's what makes him such a great leader for the Cherokee people. Listening to the wise counsel of these friends, mentors, and advisors, guided by their spiritual beliefs, helps inform my own beliefs and makes me a better chief. We hope you appreciate the exploration of Cherokee spirituality. Wado.
Wado, Chief. A few years ago, I had the honor of helping to produce a segment for OsiyoTV with Crossland Smith, spiritual leader of the Cherokee Nation. Crossland, now 92, has lived his full life in service of not only the Cherokee people, but anyone that has had a need to understand Cherokee spirituality in practice. And he has provided healing assistance. His approach is holistic mind, body, and spirit. We hope you enjoy hearing his perspective in this video.
Usa ediga gede, di wadoida. Only where told you what's it when need words gagede you do it, do the case again. Osio, Tohijam. I am Crossland F Smith, a spiritual leader of the Cherokee Nation. My grandfather had said, whenever they ask you what you believe in, the curiosity seekers, mostly coming from tourist people, you reply, I believe in the old way. The question would come, what is the old way? We're going to explore what the old way really means. The spirituality of our culture is dated back to early times, you might say ancient times. During those times when our ancestors could still do what the Creator taught them to do, if they did succeed in becoming one with their spirit that the Creator had given them when they were born, in unison, togetherness. When they did this, the Creator actually spoke to them. In my work with the spirituality, I do diagnosis with the use of the Spirit. A person receives that special gift when they're born. They receive it from the Creator. You can't hardly teach it. When you eliminate all things except your spirit, there's power. Things can happen. You can do things that you don't think you can do. Only when you are practicing healing methods, you should be in accord with the whole universe. Latter part of 49, 1950, I went to Chilocco Indian School. When I was young, many things happened to me, good things. For example, been working on a farm at the dairy barn. Walking across the campus, I had to pass by a fish pond, and I noticed birds bathing in that fish pond. As I walked closer, the flock flew out, except for one, and I walked right up to it. I picked it up. When I got to the schoolhouse door, I had to either let my books go or the bird go to open the door. So I opened my hand and the bird flew up. In the meantime, when I was carrying that bird, I was thinking, something's wrong with this bird. It might be hurt, it might be injured. But when I opened my hand, there was nothing wrong with it. It flew away. And thinking, how did I do this? How did I catch that wild animal empty-handed? And I began to capture the state of mind that I was in. You might say my physical attribute completely left me, and my spirit coincided with the spirit of these animals that I captured. In the same manner, if you become one spiritually with different people or animals even, you can get along with them. And when I do these various lessons for the Cherokee Nation, I try to recapture the state of mind that I was in when these phenomenal things happened to me. For 64 years, she's been with me. Wherever I go to do business with Cherokee Nation to bless some project, she goes with me. She's always been with me. I'm proud of being a spiritual person. Secondly, I'm proud to be a Cherokee. The ancient culture, the old way, it's as new as anything else. It's just a label, the old way. It's kind of a cheap way to label something that's good, something that's always been good. If they can learn, I would leave them for them to learn about their own spirit and how to use that spirit. We have a good chance giving back the Indian people what they have lost. That's what my ancestors meant when they said, answer these people that ask what you believe in. You believe in the old way. In short, that is the best thing I can offer to any people. Givuda haniga ozanest kunige se yoganti agayol go hit tuna de hyona digi dude. Givuga iga gadant liva saniga givuniga skiatagana last. That's it.
Joining me now in the studio are two very spiritual and close men, Deputy Chief Bryan Warner and beloved Elder Saul Moccasin, to discuss their personal journeys peacefully walking in two worlds. Sio Nagad, thank you for joining us today. Yeah, thank you. Okay, before we get started with questions, I know that you wanted to preface by letting everyone know that you both come here to share only your experiences and do not judge anyone whose journey might be different from yours, correct?
Yes. Correct, but I'd like to say that my journey has been one that not only involves working, within what we call the traditional faith journey, but also with tribal journeys across the country and other places in the world. So it deals with all people's spirituality that I don't make a judgment on.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay, Saul, we're excited for you to share some of that knowledge and experience with us. And that brings me to possibly one of the most important parts of our traditions of spirituality, which is listening to those who are here to teach us. Can you explain the importance of listening?
As one who talks not a whole lot, but when I get a chance to talk about what are the most important elements of learning, first of all, I'll say that I had two parents that really knew how to teach, but neither one of them got very far in school. Neither one of them graduated from high school, but one thing they knew how to do, and we could learn by example, was how to listen. I'm the second of 10 children, and so they had to learn how to listen, for doing so much work with so many children. But the lesson that was learned was how to listen, particularly when we got into our faith journeys, that not to listen is not the Jesus way. And so that we learned well, how to listen. It's vitally important, not only for you to learn how to listen, but because it's going to help you to teach better in a humble way.
Great. One thing that is apparent in listening to you is your humility. So this is something that is displayed by so many of our elders. And how would you say that humility relates to our spirituality?
That's a deep question. Some people, I'm sure, have wondered when questions are asked of elders, they don't seem to want to answer, or their answers are very short. And the assumption is they don't know a whole lot, or that they're the stoic kind of persons. But again, it's how to listen and how to urge one who has some knowledge that you need is how do you ask questions? This is a good question. I know elders who are very close friends of mine, and some younger ones who are children of my elders or grandchildren who know how to listen too. And so what did they do to teach that? It's simply this, that people of faith have got to learn this, that no matter which culture you are responding to questions to, that listening means that you are going to learn how to make what you have to say more meaningful to someone whose background and their faith journey may be different from yours. So it means that's how you're going to be more successful in telling youth and others what they need to learn, by first being humble because you know how to listen.
Great. Thank you. Deputy Chief Warner, how can our at-large citizens embrace some of what Saul is talking about and really implement those things into their lives, like humility, for example?
You bet. Well, and before we touch on the humility side of this, something that Saul and I have touched on, I met Saul back in the spring of 2015 over the phone, and I'd never got to meet Saul in person. At the inauguration in 2015, I was eating with my family, and I stood up all of a sudden because I saw two gentlemen walk into the room, and something was stirred in my spirit, and it was a good stirring. And I told my wife, I said, I believe that man, one of those two men, and I believe it's the one in the front, that's got to be Saul Moccasin. And my spirit was stirred rightly, therefore, because I had visited with Saul, and when he's talking about that listening and things that we talked about, most people, they think about their ears and different things, but Saul talks about, and many others that I've met through my spiritual journey talked about listening through their heart. When I took a group of kiddos to Camp Egan for a sunshine camp and was extremely blessed. The entire theme of that camp was about that listening. But in order to listen, as Saul said, that humility for our at-large folks that are out there, and really just anyone, walking in humility is something that we can practice each and every day, just by going to the grocery store, by dropping the kids off, by picking the kids up from school, by engaging in everyday activity. And I think for me, being that humble is putting myself aside, being prepared to listen with my heart. and go in and hear the questions and hear what's important to those other individuals before I make any assumptions about what they're wanting to do. And I think that's something that everybody can practice, no matter where you're at on this thing that we call Earth. This wonderful planet the Creator has gifted each of us. So I think for me, being around beloved elders such as Saul and others, it's been a blessing, because I have learned more through their stories and through their journey and through their testimony on how do I listen, and was I really listening with my heart, and my daily reflection of how did I do today, Lord? What did I miss? Because Lord knows that we're going to miss a lot of things, but it's that is that part of that humble heart that helps us reflect, it helps us listen, and it helps us get through the day.
A lot to learn from our elders.
Yes, ma'am.
Saul, the next question is for you. And when we discuss spirituality, we often talk about love for one another, love for ourselves. How does love play into your spiritual journey?
Another good question. Let me begin by just a little follow-up. Thank you, Brian, for what you shared. Listening means more than just listening to other humans. And when you say Mother Earth, how did I learn to listen to Mother Earth? So I'll tell this short story. My older brother and I would go hunting and go camping with my dad, who was a full-blood Choctaw. And what he would do the first night that I remember this is he'd set up the camp, he'd build a fire for us since we were just little kids. But to learn, how to not only identify what plants were out there, what's edible, but what kind of animals are out there, where do they live, and how do they live, how do they fly, and all of those things, but how to listen to trees. Because as he finished setting up the camp, then my brother and I were sitting together by the fire, and my dad said, "Listen to that tree." And he said, It's talking to us. And my older brother looked at me and said, "Dad's losing it, isn't he?" And so we kept listening, and he said, "Listen to that tree." He said, "It's talking to us." And finally, my older brother said, "Dad, how does a tree talk to us?" He said, "First of all, I know what kind of a tree it is. It's a jack pine." "How do you know that? How do you know it's a jack pine? It's dark. You can't see that tree." And so he said, "It's a jack pine because the wind is blowing from the southeast where it usually doesn't blow from. And this time of the year, it has different kinds of leaves than others. And some leaves, they never die. And so it's singing us a song. And so if you listen really hard, you can tell that it's singing you a song. It's singing you to sleep tonight. And so listen to that jack pine where the wind is blowing through its leaves and it's singing you a song. It's talking to us. And so listening means that too. And you apply that same principle, that some people may be sad, when they're talking to you. And so in your humility of learning how to listen to trees, you learn that people sometimes are singing you a song, that you don't even know that they're singing to you. But it helps you to learn to listen to pains of other people, how to listen to the joy of other people, and it has to do with how you listen to others who have those pains, who have those joys, and you can celebrate it that way, whether it's another human or whether it's a tree.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that story. Did you want to talk a little bit about how love plays into your spiritual journey?
That's probably the most important element of learning how to listen. For me, as one who's studied Scripture hard, and other people wonder, where did I learn that? Mm-hmm. Where did I learn that? And so let me tell this short story. I'll try to make it short. The New Testament was written not in English or not in Cherokee, but was written in the Greek language. That's the first New Testament. The Old Testament was first written in Hebrew, the language of the Jewish people. And so in Greek, there are two words that that mean love. One is, and they're both Greek, the level of love where marriages don't last, where relationships with children don't last or not very good, and where it's not a sacrificial love. It's kind of a human limited love that causes us to even say, I love you, honey. I love you, honey. But is it a sacrificial love? No, it is not. That word is ptokos in Greek, and that's how it's written in the Greek New Testament. The second word for love is one we've heard on TV recently. And just a second, I can't remember the word. It's been on TV, but it's a word, I'll remember it in just a second. That doesn't mean, or it means sacrificial. A truly sacrificial love that our Lord Jesus Christ sacrificed in humility his own life so that we, could be freed from the slavery of sin, of doing bad things. And that's the second word. And so when he asked Peter, this real impetuous disciple of his, 3 times, do you love me? He first said, Peter, do you ptokos me? The sacrificial love where you'll die in humility for someone you really truly love, like my son Jesus did. That's the word. The other word, again, why can't I remember?
Is it agape?
Agape.
Yeah.
But the Greek word is agapao. But agape we say for short. And that's the sacrificial love that our Lord Jesus Christ shed his blood on the cross to free us from sin of all people in the past, in the present, and in the future. And so that love then is once we understand it, that it has to be in humility only that we can sacrifice ourselves sacrificially to someone we marry. That very rarely happens. And so that's why it is so important to be humble about Jesus Christ's sacrificial shedding of his blood for us.
Thank you for that. Deputy Chief Warner, I know this message of love is something that is close to your heart, so would you like to wrap us up with some final thoughts on that?
Yes, well, thank you, and Saul, thank you for the time and the fellowship that you're giving us here today. I know it's special for me, and I know it will be for everyone else. But for me, love. Sometimes I call it big love and different things, but I go back to the commandments. And, our first is to love God above all, love the Creator above all. And then that second commandment, which is very vital to all of us today, that's love one another as we would love ourselves. So love, the 2 top commandments, there it is, it's love. And then what we've kind of, to bring everything together, what I'm sitting here listening today, one of my favorite verses is in Ecclesiastes, the 3-fold cord is hardly broken. And I start to think about today, I think about listening, I think about humility, and I think about love. And this message today, whoever this message is for, there's somebody out there, there's probably more than one, but there's somebody out there that we know will understand what it is, and that's what love is. Love is understanding. We may not like the individuals that we walk into a meeting with, but we are to love them in a spiritually way because we come with a humble, listening heart so that we can do good for all the people. And I think the leaders of today, if we do more of that, and it's an exercise, it's a fitness, a spiritual fitness, if you will, and that's where we're to practice and we're to pray and we're to fast. These are things that are vitally important to our future generations, and they're all ultimately important to the decisions that we make today. So we need more love, loving one another as we love ourselves in any situation, in any instance, because those are 2 vital commandments.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Yes.
both of you, for your time. We appreciate it. Saul, it was great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Don't dago ha'i.
Well, we don't.
As host of OsiyoTV, I have had the good fortune to travel and visit with Cherokee at-large citizens across the country. Charles Twist lives in Bakersfield, California. He is a minister and has blended his beliefs with Cherokee spiritual beliefs to create a ceremony that keeps him connected to our ancient practices while helping others in his community.
I am Charles Twist. I teach at a men's home. We're dealing with people that would either be in that home or prison because of drug or alcohol abuse, and so we're mentoring them that there's a different way to live life than what they've lived. And they're people that have either been thrown away or they've thrown themselves away. And so when somebody cares about them and somebody's consistent, then they can find value. And then I get to give them that just by being something for them at that moment in time. It's a purpose that I feel comfortable with. I use Cherokee stories to tell them things, and I teach kind of out of that story element so that they have to make a conclusion. One of them is the story of Ukan, the Shining One, and the warrior that he was in battle with, and the promise that was made. There's an angel called Ukan, in Cherokee that means shining, bright. And then there was another one, there was another man, and they're struggling back and forth. And so up walks, let's say, you walk up. And so as the struggle's going on, Ukan cries out and he says, if you'll help me, I'll give you wealth, I'll give you position, and I'll give you things that'll benefit you. The other warrior, he cries out, he says, if you will help me, I'll give you medicine. And if I give you medicine, I'll give you knowledge. I'll give you something that you can give to somebody else. I'll give you something that will help you forever. And so there's always that choice. See, we're always at a place of choosing. Some things are now. So we have to choose between life like that a lot of times. There's something that can help us forever, and through that help we get to help everybody. That's medicine. And when you use medicine, we get to help a lot of people. If we just use something temporary, it'll go away. So the man made a good choice, and he killed the Shining One. So medicine came into the Cherokee hands, and I'm grateful for that man. He gave me hope today.
Wade Ryan Mackey has served in many capacities at the Cherokee Nation over several administrations, but one thing that has always motivated him was his passion for perpetuating the Cherokee culture, most notably the language. Wade is a language warrior. He is also a ceremonial ground leader or chief, which is why he's here with us today. Wado for being here.
Wado.
Abraham Bearpaw was born in Marble City, Oklahoma, a small reservation town. His family eventually moving to California, where he spent many years working for and with tribes to develop cultural programming. Thank you so much for being here.
Wado.
Okay, let's get started. The first question is for you, Wade. What is the essence of Cherokee ceremonies? How difficult is it to maintain these ceremonies in modern times?
I think that the primary essence is what we call spirituality in general. Ultimately, it has to do with the connection of spirit and the way that you look at the world. And the foundation of that positionality is thankfulness. So a lot of times people search the world over for the key for happiness. In Cherokee, the way we say I'm happy is gali'eliga. It's also the way that we express thankfulness. So when I say I'm grateful to you, I say gayelialichis. They have the same root. So if you want to be happy, you're thankful.
One thing that people ask a lot is how do our Cherokee ceremonies differ from powwows? Can you talk about that?
Definitely. When you think about powwows, the most key feature that really captures my interest and most people's interest is the giant drum in the center. It represents the heartbeat to them. We have borrowed the powwow culture from our Plains brothers and sisters, but a lot of Cherokees have become involved in that over the last 2 or 3 generations. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, though, it's borrowed. Our ancestral traditions that tie us to our original spirituality are associated with the ceremonial grounds. And ceremonial grounds, reaching back to your initial question, are one of the aspects that are challenging to move forward into the contemporary world. The way of life of our ancestors has changed. Mm-hmm. And so when we go to the ceremonial grounds, we engage in that more original lifestyle and that can be challenging for people that are more used to convenience. And simplicity is sometimes difficult to do, even something as simple as setting your cell phone down. And although these ceremonial grounds do harken back to a simpler way of life, there's an element of cultural exchange, social interactivity that a lot of times modern day people don't get to engage in. And people aren't always used to sitting down and having conversations and in cultural exchanges. The primary difference between powwow and ceremonial grounds is that at our ceremonial grounds we have a fire in the center. Where at powwows they have a drum in the center. The drum is important for their dances and their songs, and I would say it's a spiritual tradition, but the ceremonial ground is ultimately spiritual in purpose. The ceremonial fire was given to our ancestors way back, we don't know how far back, maybe at the beginning of time. They say that it was renewed on Clingman's Dome, which is a mountain in North Carolina, where our language tells us that we were originally known as Onigaduwak. That was our old spiritual name for ourselves. We were renewed. The fire was renewed, our medicine was renewed, our clans were renewed. When that fire was brought down from the mountain, it was shared between all of our Cherokee communities. At the time of European contact, we had about 60 tribal towns, old ancient villages, and they all shared a part of that one fire. Mm-hmm. So we're all connected to that one fire still at our ceremonial grounds.
Can you share some other protocols from our ceremonial grounds? Definitely.
One of the things about the ceremonial grounds is there's this idea of being prepared. So there are different elements in our spirituality that seem to be universal for all Cherokees. First and foremost is that fire. It's a living thing. It connects us to our ancestors. It lives in the hearts of our people. It doesn't just live at the ceremonial ground, but it lives in us. They say that it connects us to the heart of creation in the heavens, which is the sun, where the fire is the heart of creation on earth. So it all is associated with our heart. The fire is the heart of that community. And so when people dance together and engage in ceremony, they do it as one body with that fire in the center. All important things took place around that fire. We didn't differentiate between politics and spirituality back in the ancient times. And so all of those things are folded together. Our bodies and our spirits were believed to be connected. We went to the water, we prayed, we cleaned off. This water ceremony is something that Cherokees can engage in no matter where they're at. Running water was always necessary for our survival. They say that that was one of our first original teachings, was going to that running water. That connects people all over the world. You'll find it in indigenous cultures everywhere. Another important part of our spirituality that people engage in at the ceremonial grounds is the ball game. Now, the ball game is a little bit different today. There are different versions of it. We have a tournament-style version that we got from the Choctaw people. There's a man-on-man game that they still play among the Eastern Cherokees. It's a match game. That was a ceremonial replacement for warfare. But at modern-day Cherokee ceremonial grounds, they play the social game, which is an engagement between men and women. And the goal of it is to excel, to do your very best without hurting those around you. So even if you get angry, you're supposed to set down. You're supposed to set that aside. It's to do your very best within the parameters of taking care of each other. Fasting is a part of it. Feasting is a big part of it. And a lot of times people come for the medicine. There are different types of medicine that's done, and this medicine connects us to our environment. Without the woods, the running waters, the creeks, a healthy environment, we don't have the medicine. And the medicine's different in different places, and it's for different purposes. But ultimately, it's to make our lives better. It's to help us with. That's what they say. Even if people don't make it for the medicine, they'll come for the dancing. And the dancing is at night around the ceremonial fire. People don't dress up very fancy. The guys will wear a cowboy hat, sometimes a ball cap. But the ones that know how to lead the songs, they'll wear an eagle feather in their hat. So if you go out to a ceremonial ground with an eagle feather, they're going to ask you to sing. And each guy that is chosen to lead goes out around the fire and they sing call and response. And it's the men's job to sing. We don't tell the women not to sing, but the women honor us by wearing turtle shells. That's what carries the rhythm of the dance. Now at the powwow, you know, they have the big drum, and we have a little drum. It's a water drum. Now this is my friend's water drum. It was made by one of our grounds members, but she let me borrow it. And it's a soft, very tender sound. And I asked an elder one time, why do we play this when you can barely hear it? Most of the song is carried by the women. And he told me that it's for the Creator's ears. It doesn't matter if we can hear it or not. So most of the time, the women are musicians. And a lot of times they'll wear turtle shells, or sometimes in contemporary ceremonial grounds, they'll wear condensed milk cans. And this carries the rhythm of our song. Without these turtles singing, we can't have our ceremonies. Sometimes the guys will use the water drums too. Sometimes they use hand rattles. Hand rattles are sometimes turtle shells, but more often they're made out of coconuts. So the guys sing and the women, they shake shells for us. Powwows, the men sing. Sometimes there are women that stand around the drum and help out, but the focus is the dance. And they have lots of different styles from different tribes. It's a contest. At our ceremonial grounds, those are just prayers. Everything is about Thanksgiving.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to follow up with you on some of that in just a little bit. But Abraham, I would like to ask you if you could share with us why you think Cherokee spirituality is important today.
I think it continues to be important today because the teachings are still relevant. I remember everything that I was taught as a child, the teachings from the Stomp Ground, they still apply to my life today. One of my earliest memories is actually from the Stomp Ground. My uncle Jim Mankiller, he pointed at the post that marked the entrance to the ground, and he said, you know, you see those posts there? He said, once you pass those posts, you no longer have enemies. All of your negativity, your anger, resentment, your fear, your anxiety, you have to leave it outside those posts because the grounds are doctored there with medicine. You have to come with a good heart and a good mind. And I remember, you know, being that young, I could actually picture all of my fear and anxiety. And, you know, when you're young, you feel kind of awkward. And I left it all there. And I remember just that feeling of being free. And I was so light. And I would run around and play ball and eat. And we would laugh. And, you know, those are the earliest memories I have of our spirituality. And so the trick is to take that feeling and apply it every day. And it's easier said than done in, you know, today's society. You know, we seem to get faster and faster and more busy. There are a lot of demands on our time. So for us to still have that framework that our spirituality provides, this program for wellness, I think it's more important than ever. And so it's just really exciting that we get an opportunity to continue to perpetuate these teachings, you know, and our spirituality, it helps us to remain connected, you know, not just with the Creator, but our own spirit, connected to others and connected to the environment as well. And that connection, I believe, is what has helped Cherokee people sustain for, you know, through such, you know, tremendous adversity that we have faced. It's our values and our cultural and spiritual teachings that have helped us overcome.
Wade, our ceremonial traditions have been handed down by our ancestors by what's termed oral traditions. Can you explain this method and the breadth of what they tell us?
Yes, ma'am. They say, ani gayan, uni no heda. It's what the old one said. So almost everything written about Cherokees has been by non-Cherokees. And we are the most widely documented tribe that I'm aware of. The thing is, since it was written by non-Cherokees, the audience was not for us. Even when Cherokees do get an opportunity to write about us, a lot of times they're writing for a wider audience. So the real good stuff gets passed down through the family, through the community. We like to use this word tradition, and there's tradition with a small t, which is basically everything that we do. But tradition with a big T takes us back to ancient times. So we could say things that are historical. Things like the modern day tear dress or even the ribbon shirts that we wear, those aren't something our ancestors did, but they've become contemporary. They're traditional at this point, maybe with a small t. When we talk about our spirituality and our ceremonies, we're talking about the big one. So the knowledge that's passed down to us comes either from elders in our family or elders in our community. And if it didn't come from them, even if it's from a book, it means that it's not really ours anymore, because culture does change through time. And part of being a responsible ceremonial person for me is doing what the elders have taught me as opposed to what I've read about. I do like to read about things and learn what might have been, but the living tradition has changed, and we do our best to honor the elders that taught us by word of mouth.
And can you tell us a little bit about the gender differences in ceremony?
Yes, ma'am. I mentioned earlier that the women are our musicians and it's the men's job to sing the songs, but it's more than that. And the thing is, gender by our modern standard, we really don't have a word for it in Cherokee. The words that we have are not just about male or female, men or women. They're associated with a person's age and their roles in life. So you could just talk about them almost as if they're social roles. So for the women that shake shells, for them, that role of shaking shells is valuable. That's a ceremonial leadership role for them. Just like the men have men that sing to lead, those women follow the lead shell shaker and they do what she does. The young kids, they have roles too. They're almost a separate gender. They don't do necessarily what the adult men do or what the adult women do. Sometimes they're in training to do those things, but they usually dance at the end of the line and they mimic the older folks. And once people reach a certain age, they become our beloved elders. And at that point, they do just about whatever they want to do. And they don't have to do anything. Ultimately, they honor us by correcting us when we make mistakes or teaching us the better way to do things. So gender roles in that regard have more to do with responsibilities. And sometimes they're surprising, and we don't have enough time to really go into it online, but it's something I've asked a lot of our elders. And one of the things that they always point out, just like I said earlier, we can't have these songs and these dances without those women wearing the turtle shell shakers. When you go to a ceremonial ground, they play ball, that social game that I mentioned. The men, it's their job to use the sticks to pick up the ball, to catch the ball, to throw the ball. These sticks, they're usually made out of hickory, and they have a little ball that almost looks like a baseball. The women, they don't have the same rules. Mm-hmm. They pick up the ball with their hands, they throw the ball with their hands. They can grab the guys and throw them around. Sometimes, some places that have been known to get a little rough and maybe even rip some of the shirts off of those guys. But as soon as they grab our sticks, we're supposed to hold still. We're not supposed to smack their fingers. We're not supposed to throw them down. We're supposed to hold still. This is not just when the women touch us. If there's a small one walking through, an elder walking through, we may be struggling hard against those women wrestling to score those points, but ultimately, when somebody different than your gender comes through, you pay respect to them. And you may struggle like you're trying to take that ball away from that little kid, but ultimately, you're not. Your goal is the same as that child's, to get them to score. These songs, these dances, the ball game, they're not just spiritual, they're physical too. So playing this game helps keep us healthy. They say if you participate in the ball game, you participate in the dance, when you dance all night, that adds physical strength, physical health. And we believe that our bodies and spirits are tied together. And even something that might seem frivolous, like a ball game, is part of that spirituality, because engaging in play is also a part of ceremony for us.
Abraham, this next question's for you. You have led many discussions online regarding spirituality. What are some of the main takeaways you hope viewers can glean from those videos?
What I would like people to take away from those are that everything that they need can be found in our culture and our spirituality. Like I was talking about before, our ancestors really left behind a framework and a program for wellness for Cherokee people. And if we follow those cultural and spiritual teachings, then we can live a fulfilled life of wellness. So some of the teachings that what Dave was mentioned, referring to also, gratitude, mindfulness, balance, sobriety, all of these things help us to stay balanced. And these things can be practiced anywhere. And, we're supposed to carry ourselves like we're at ceremony every day. And that's really the goal. When we, we follow these spiritual practices. So I do these at home. I do the gratitude practice every day when I'm in the shower. And of course, Cherokees have a very deep relationship with water. So I think that's an appropriate time. So I just, after I've had my coffee, and I give thanks to the Creator for waking up another day, I jump in the shower and I just start listing things I'm grateful for. And it really just shifts my focus away from, I hope my daughter finished her homework, or the dogs are already barking, or, all of this outside stuff. And just shifts my focus to everything that I have to be grateful for. So right after that, when I'm braiding my hair or my wife's braiding my hair, I do positive affirmations. And I just, those are for me. I just do them to myself. And, I just say things that I want to be positive about, maybe things I want to wish for others. And I do that throughout the day. And that's just a program for living. And I practice mindfulness also, that mindfulness that we are taught at the Stomp Ground, that what they refer to, is just being still. We put our phones away. We take that time to listen to the trees, we have to be quiet in order to be able to be at one with our own spirit. And once we are able to do that, then our spirit will talk to us. And, even me moving back here to Oklahoma, that was a part of my spiritual journey. And it was a risk, but it was important. I wanted to come back and help perpetuate our culture. And that was my spiritual calling. And I feel like I had to be quiet to hear that. And so, I would just say that we are blessed to have such a vibrant spiritual wellness and cultural wellness path laid out before us. So,
Wado, we're thankful that you're here.
Wado.
We appreciate it. Wade, some parts of ceremony have evolved, as he just talked a little bit about, or adapted over time. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that, when our ancestors were living in those ancient times, they didn't have certain comforts that we have. So we do take advantage of those things. Some of our grounds, they have running water. A lot of them have electricity. Not all of them. We have about a half dozen ceremonial grounds. The one that I belong to is pretty small, and it's one of the newer ones. But we have some that are really old, that have been going for a long time. And some of them are more into keeping it traditional than others. I think all of us value tradition. We just have different interpretations depending on the elders in our community and family. And I think that although it's important to understand that there are certain things that have changed, the core values are the same. There's something that Abraham's brought up again and again, how we treat each other, how we think about ourselves, how we talk about ourselves. There's this idea that we belong to our community. Our ancestors, they had this clan system where we belong to our clans. And at the ceremonial grounds, the clans are still alive and well. And so we belong to our ground in a way that a lot of people might not understand. But what that means is that when you serve other people, when you belong to them, you have to take care of yourself. If you're not taking good care of yourself emotionally, spiritually, physically, then you're not going to have the strength to be a good tool to your community. That's something that we do try to maintain. The language is important to maintain. The more Cherokee that we speak around that ceremonial ground, the stronger our medicine is. They say our language ties us to the spirits in a way that English doesn't. It also ties us to those traditions that we've been passed down to us. Ultimately, the best understanding behind those traditions is tied to the interpretation that we get from our language. Ultimately, though, there are some changes. We have the different types of shell shakers. Some grounds only allow turtles, but most of our grounds, they allow the cans. Sometimes young people are allowed to sing and shake shells, where at one time, a lot of folks say it was just the older folks that did those things. But what we've learned is that if we can engage the youth, then they'll be interested. If we can engage the youth, it'll give them an alternative, something to do on Saturday night other than go out and drink and party around. We know that sometimes people grow up and they have to engage in life in a way to get a little bit of wisdom, but ultimately our goal is sobriety. Our goal is commitment to community and to each other. And I believe that that's something that's always been the primary goal of our ceremonial ways. Our spirituality is to make us the best tool that we can be for ourselves and for others.
What about for Cherokees watching far and wide? How can they learn to practice ceremonial ways, and how can they do it when they're not here?
I think that ultimately that spirit of gratitude that Abraham mentioned is our primary focus when it comes to ceremony. We have dances throughout the year. They used to be at certain moons, certain times of the year. And sometimes that still happens, but ultimately the focus was Thanksgiving every time. We give thanks for everything that we have, and we're always provided with what we need. So those positive affirmations, going to water, even if it's in the shower in the morning, giving your thanks, asking to be purified. They say that ultimately we are inherently worthy, but we go to our provider, Unehana, to ensure that we're worthy. That hand in hand, we can do whatever we need to do, but sometimes we have to reach out and grasp that hand. And that's one of the ultimate values of our spirituality, is to help ourselves, to help each other. And to do that, sometimes we have to ask for help. There are a lot of things that have changed, but ultimately, I think that most of the things that we do at the ceremonial grounds are tied to tradition, things that are passed down in people's families. And even if you don't have access to a ceremonial ground, you can easily gain access by talking to somebody that knows where they're at. I've often been told that people have to be invited, but every time I talk to one of the other ceremonial leaders at our Cherokee Stomp Grounds, they say if folks find their way out here and they show respect and follow the rules, they're all welcome. Sobriety is important. We ask that people don't drink, that they don't bring guns, and that they leave their cameras at home. Ultimately, though, once they're there, they're invited to eat, they're invited to participate, and everybody's welcome. People can't always make it back here to participate, though. They don't always have access to an elder or medicine person to ask questions of. So ultimately, they have to follow their spirit. And our ancestors, before they had any written language, maybe before they had any language at all, the elders told me that what we did is we went to the woods, and we learned from the animals and the plants in the woods. So anywhere there's wilderness, desert, mountains, ocean, I suggest that people go out and they spend time alone. Spend time alone in the wilderness, and that's a good way to connect, to find a reason to be alive and to be thankful for it.
Appreciate that. Very helpful. Wrapping up here, our final question. Abraham, you have a very popular series of presentations and discussions on CCO's Community and Cultural Outreach's YouTube channel. Would you share some highlighted topics and presenters and let us know where viewers can get more information about those presentations?
Yes, like you mentioned, on our YouTube channel, they can find a wide range of topics. And we actually just did a presentation on powwows. And this was for our at-large citizens who, that may be their only way to find a cultural connection in their community. I remember when my mother was young, they were relocated to San Francisco. They said they would drive hundreds of miles just to go to a powwow, to be around other Native people and to feel that power in community. And, also I'm going to begin teaching a curriculum that I developed called Walking in Balance. That will be on our YouTube channel also, and it will be live. That is going to cover a lot of the teachings that are covered at the Stomp Ground. So we're going to talk about things like gratitude, balance, forgiveness. And forgiveness is one that I forgot to mention earlier also. That's really important in today's society. We can't drag yesterday into today and then into tomorrow. When we go to the Stomp Ground, we're taught to forgive, and to see other people's side, to see that these people are hurting, if somebody wronged you. And it really helps us to keep remain close to our spirit if we don't have all of that extra baggage. And so that's some of the things I'm going to be talking about in the Walking in Balance class. So that's another resource if people would be interested in checking that out.
Okay. And we did want to go ahead and give everyone Abraham's email address in case you have further questions. He has agreed to this. So it is abraham-bearpaw@cherokee.org. Wado, both of you for being here today. I know this is a very important discussion, one that everyone has requested over and over again. We hope that someone out there has learned something today, and I'm sure that they have. We appreciate your time. As you know, Cherokees are traditionally a matriarchal society, and it continues to be important to include women and our perspectives today. So to wrap up, we have someone who most Cherokees know, as she has dedicated her cultural knowledge and connections to the promotion of Cherokee values and spirit, Donnie Squirrel.
Widow Jennifer, Sio Nagad, Don Salol Dawado. Hello, everyone. I am Donnie Squirrel, and I'm a cultural advisor for the Cherokee Nation. Today, you have heard from some of our most important leaders that have ensured that our Cherokee spiritual practices are still in place, that ceremonies are carried out. Like our language and many other important facets of our culture, we have had to struggle to hold on to our ceremonies. Of the 400,000 Cherokee citizens, less than 1,000 people work directly to carry out our ceremonies here on the Cherokee Reservation and in our homelands in North Carolina. My hope is that we support those that carry on these traditions and thank them for keeping our ancient practices alive, and that there will be more participation in the future. As Cherokee women, we have roles and responsibilities to carry out to ensure that the younger generation perpetuates our lifeways, that we welcome everyone that wants to learn to help carry out the rhythm of our dances with the turtle shell shakers we wear on our lower legs. As clan mothers, we work together to help our families, communities, and tribe develop as Cherokee people. On the Cherokees at Large website, you will find links to spirituality discussions, as well as other topics important to Cherokee culture, including the prayer I am about to read. Wado for joining us today. Unetlanahi. From the appearing way, merciful Creator, thank you for the sun which purifies. It brings light into the world, enlightenment into the darkness, and understanding to those that need it. Help us to be the bearers of your light. From the way of the cold, great Creator, thank you for the cold, the snow that winter brings. It brings purity to the earth and renews your creation. Thank you for the seasons of winter in our lives. It is our facing of such trials that allows you to renew our lives. Grant us the strength to endure. From the disappearing way, Father of our ancestors, thank you for the stories, the experiences, the stories of your faithfulness to your people. Grant us the ears to listen and to hear you, and the wisdom to live accordingly. From the way of the warm, Creator of life, thank you for the times of growth which we experience. Thank you for nurturing us and helping us grow, for blessing us and enabling us to be a blessing to others. From the way of the low, Creator of Mother Earth, we give you thanks for providing for our every need, for calling us out of the earth and seeking a relationship with each of us, and for granting us the opportunity to be in sacred relationship with you and all of your creation. From the center of our being, Creator of within, we pray in all of these directions, remembering your faithfulness, and with all of who we offer ourselves and our prayers to you this day. From the uppermost way, Creator of the highest, we-hi-yo, ya-we-hi-ya, we-hi-ya, ya-we-hi-you. To close, my good friend and Cherokee National Treasure, Tommy Wildcat, will play for us as we say, Do-da-da go-ha-i, until we see each other again. Tommy?
taga hae the God and Yahweh and Cherokee.